Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Good, Jason. How are you today?
Doing good, man. Welcome to the Leading and Serving Podcast.
Episode number?
28.
28.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, it is off. We have already recorded episode 29, and I knew I was going to botch that.
We're living life out of order.
Right, we totally are. And I'm not used to it, Jason.
I know. Me either. I don't know.
So
we'll get there.
We will, but, one way or another.
Yeah, I'm really excited that it sounds like, the podcast is moving and grooving, and people are kind of latching on, and we're making an impact.
Yes, I'm excited about that.
So excited about that, because that's really the heart behind this. Is that
totally is.
We don't ever expect to be like walking a red carpet as podcast hosts.
Nope. No, and truly at the beginning, like when we started this, the whole goal was just to get information out there to help people out.
Yeah.
Like
we want to serve y'all and impact. And so we actually had a review come in through Apple Podcasts.
Oh, we did?
Yeah. That's kind of cool. See, Apple Podcasts, you can give a review.
Okay.
Spotify, you can't necessarily that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And then other platforms I'm not as familiar with either. Those are the two that I know. But Apple Podcasts, we got a 5-star review.
Nice. Thank you.
Out of 5 stars, not 10.
Okay. That's good.
That's a good point.
Expectations, right?
But yeah, we just want to say thanks to B-Dog Sweenstar.
Okay.
I have no idea who that is.
I have no idea who that is either.
But yeah, just, started listening to the podcast over the last few weeks. Has really enjoyed the positive impact that, discussions about service, life and balance, work, relationships, life in general. It's really been helpful for them. And so,
wow.
Man, thanks for listening, B-Dog.
Yeah, thanks for giving us a review.
I know.
That was awesome.
And since you have such a cool nickname, I think Chris needs a cool nickname.
Right.
We're going to have to come up with... Okay, so yeah, send us in some suggestions of cool nicknames for Chris.
Yes, I guess apparently I need a cool nickname.
We'll come up with something. So, but hey, thanks for listening, and glad you guys tuned in. But hey, we've been talking a little bit about the mindset that leaders should have. Right. We've been talking about, how leaders should work through role clarity, setting great expectations, giving effective support and challenge. One of the things that we need to think through as a leader is whether or not our actions are, the things that we do are they either accidental or are they intentional? Mm-hmm. And this is a leadership tool that we talked about a handful of episodes ago. It's probably about 8 or 10 episodes, if I am not counting correctly, right?
Right.
That, just the difference between accidental, which is kind of you're just responding to everything.
Right.
When a crisis hits, when something, comes across your desk, you just respond quickly, and you just kind of, you feel maybe it's somewhat strategic, but if we're honest, it's just kind of accidental.
Right.
Our actions are just accidental at that point.
It's in the midst of life.
And so how do we be intentional? How are we being proactive and strategic and thoughtful in our actions? Mm-hmm. And, an intentional leader is someone who, just cares more about the people they're serving than the business they're serving. Okay. Whether, even if you're the owner,
right.
Solopreneurs, I guess we'd have to, take a different angle on that a little bit, but
right.
If you've got a team underneath you, you're, an intentional leader is someone who's really digging in and diving into, serving his people, her people well.
Right.
Right. And that's done through your actions, not just your intentions.
Right.
It's
true.
Good intentions are great.
Right.
And
I mean, how many times have you said you're going to do something and you didn't do it?
Right.
Like, right? I mean,
following through on your word.
And don't get me wrong, we all do it. Like,
Absolutely.
We're all busy, and we're all at some level said and had good intentions of planning on doing it, right? But didn't.
Right. And I know there's one, what was the name of that? Giftology.
Yes, that was a good book.
Yeah. Just a great concept of giving gifts well.
Right.
And they basically say if you can't be really intentional about what you're doing, if you're just picking the most expensive looking $5 thing you can find.
Right.
The intentions are good.
Polished penny.
Yeah. Your intentions are good, but your actions speak louder than your intentions.
Right.
And so, don't give the little $5 gift.
Right.
And wait until you can do something really well. and be truly intentional. And I think that's, just the quality that we're thinking about in a leader is someone who's intentional about making a plan, thinking through, because intentionality requires that you kind of have that plan in advance.
Right. Yeah.
If we're reactive and we're not, we're just kind of accidental, we're just responding in the moment.
Right.
But intentional is thinking about things in advance.
Right.
And setting a plan.
And at some level, right? There's everybody's got to deal with some things that are in the midst of the time of right now. But but thinking about tomorrow or 2 weeks from now or even 6 months from now, when you haven't got anything planned, then these things. This is the time to think about it. Yeah,
I think being a leader, being an entrepreneur is about being able to respond in the moment. Right.
And some of us
handling the fires, handling the
and some of us aren't wired this way, right?
Right.
So it's even another thing that potentially could take you out of your comfort zone of recognizing, hey, at some level I need to be thinking about the next 6 months.
Right.
And what they need to what do I need to get out of it? What do I need to be intentional with?
Right. Responding well in the moment is an incredible skill.
It totally is.
But that's not all of leadership.
Right. It's amazing. Like as we study more and more leaders, right? There's people that have the passions, but we also, and they're very good at things, right? And you kind of I don't know about you, but I man, I wish I could do that better. And then there's times I'm like, I don't know that I want to do that better because I don't enjoy that at all. But it's recognizing it for what it is and trying to help and asking for help in the process.
Yeah. So like you said, asking for help in the process, finding out who can help guide me, who can coach me, who can who's walked that road before me, that can help give me some guidance in that. And so I think an intentional leader is someone who looks at their priorities, of which here on the Leading and Serving podcast we say that fighting for the highest good of others is our number one priority.
Right.
It's more important than our bottom line.
Right.
We definitely need to profit. We definitely need to keep the engine running. But in the end, we want to fight for the highest good of others. Right. And to be able to do that, we have to be intentional about it. We have to set that as a priority and something that we plan, something we focus on, and that we truly give our effort and our intent, our full action, our full strength behind it. So,
that's awesome. There's definitely one of those key things that needs to be paid attention to.
Absolutely. So, well, Chris, tell us a little bit about our interview that we got coming up.
It's funny that we're talking about intentionality because this person is very much an intentional servant.
Okay.
And he is, his name is Brendon Sweeney. And I'm looking forward to discussing his path of life and his ability to be very intentional because you can't be a doctor without being intentional.
Yeah. You don't want to throw little accidental
trying to
prescriptions around or anything like
decide at the last minute that you're going to go to med school is not exactly one of those things that's a last minute decision.
Right.
So so let's he's a family practice doctor who has just recently taken a shift. And so I would love to let's just jump right in and chat with him.
I'm excited about this. This is our first glimpse on the podcast into kind of the medical world. And so this will be fun.
We haven't touched on this much.
Yeah.
So
all right. So here we go. We'll make the jump over.
All right.
Well, welcome, Brendon.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes. Thanks for joining us today.
Glad to.
It's a pretty day outside, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you. Let's dive into. Let's dive in. Where did you start? Where was home growing up? Are you Indiana native?
I am. Yeah, I'm a Hoosier boy. I grew up in Bloomington.
Okay.
So kind of different Indiana than up here. I feel like there's a lot more hills and anyway. But great parents, really supportive. 5 siblings, so pretty big family.
Okay. And what number are you?
I'm number 5.
You're the 5th one. Okay, so you're the youngest?
So I'm second youngest. Yep.
Okay.
4 boys, 2 girls. And again, just great parents. Grew up in a home of faith and just really good servant parents, active, good parents. My father's from California, mom's from Utah, so they were kind of transplants into Indiana.
Oh, okay.
And then have stayed there ever since his master's program. Huh. And he works in computers. He's retired now. And I was a big artist. I paint, draw, ceramics, stained glass, all sorts of stuff like that. and love it, but I haven't done it for several years. And I was a skater punk in high school.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that was a good one.
Bleach tips.
Skater punk turned doctor.
Jingo jeans. Yeah, right.
Really? We need a picture of that.
We might have to.
Hey, Whitney, can you send us a picture of that?
We'll get one for
That's
you.
right.
Go ahead.
But yeah, and then so I was really good at math and science, but also art, so kind of an interesting blend. And I was planning to be a teacher, so I just had a really influential high school chemistry teacher who came from IU and taught at our high school. Just a really great guy. He was in a Master of Arts teaching program and just really skillful teacher, and I just loved him as an educator. So I just thought I'd like to pay it forward and be a teacher. And I was in college, I guess I should say. So I took a break between high school and college, and I served a mission, ecclesiastical mission for 2 years in London, which was great.
Okay.
And then came back, and while I was a junior in undergrad at IU, and I was planning to do this teacher education training course that was an evening. So it was meant for professionals, like postgraduate professionals.
Yeah.
And not a lot of undergrad students got in, but they accepted me for an interview. And I went and interviewed, and I was really excited about it. It was a great program, but I just felt really clearly in my pondering and prayer that night that I shouldn't be a teacher. And so it was just this really weird change for me.
Oh, wow.
And just felt guided otherwise. And I felt like I should go in medicine, be a doctor. And I was not prepared for that at all. And so I changed courses entirely. And I can see now the wisdom in it. I'm grateful to have that kind of guidance. But I think I'm a little bit... I'm not very frugal with my money. I have all sorts of things that I want to. I'm kind of like you, Chris.
Yeah.
Different interests I want to pursue.
Right.
And so I think a teacher's salary would have been hard. And I appreciate teachers. I think they're amazing.
Right.
But anyway, so I changed courses. I was always a careful, diligent student. Started pursuing pre-medical degree and went into medicine and went to IU and then chose family medicine, which is also just a great way to teach. I was going to say. I love the one-on-one.
They kind of coincide. Okay, so IU for undergrad and then IU medical school.
And medicine, yeah.
Okay.
Haven't gone far.
And then stuck with the family medicine thing.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So I chose family medicine. I was interested in developing relationships with people and teaching, and so I did that, and then went to St. Francis for my residency and graduated 2013. So I was in practice for 9 years in family medicine here in Greenwood, and then just March, end of March, beginning of April, I changed entirely. So I'm now the director of 2 nursing homes, and I work at another nursing home. So I supervise a team of nurse practitioners and help take care of patients there.
So let's back up. For those that don't know, like high school and then undergrad, between undergrad and then residency time frame, how long of schooling and then residency is that?
Yeah, good question.
For family practice.
Right, yeah. So you got your 4 years undergrad, and then I did 4 years in medical school.
Okay.
3 years, family medicine's 3 years of residency.
So that's 7 years, right?
So 7 years after undergrad.
Okay,
yeah.
which is quite a stint of time,
It's a long
right?
time, yeah.
You did a lot of learning in 7 years, didn't you?
I did, yeah. A lot of learning, and then how many kids? When we finished residency, we had 4 kids. So we had 2 during medical school and 2 during residency, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was busy.
Right?
Wow. So question then, how, with that amount of schooling, what is the passion that drives, because you got to be dedicated to make it that far, just to get out. What is the passion that drove you through that, of why do this?
Yeah, good question. I do love learning, so that was helpful. I love science. I love learning. It was fascinating to learn about the human body and systems. Not all of it did I like. Some of it is not as fun to learn, but I enjoyed it. But also, once we got into clinicals in medical school, I just loved it. It was nice to visit with patients and get to know their history. Not just their health history, but just their life history, and come to know them and help them figure out. I'm a problem solver. I like dealing with challenges and figuring out how to approach those challenges and overcome them. And so, doing that with humans is even better, to help them work through their health challenges. So I find that very satisfying. So it was a combination, I think, of the knowledge base, learning fascinating things about the human body, and then how to help people work through those.
Okay.
So you definitely took the teaching role to a different spin, and now you have one-on-one people.
Right.
You got one-on-one classes every day,
Right. It's
multiple
nice.
times a day, right?
most school educators would love that, right?
Right. Yeah.
So what's one of the best things that's happened to you since, say over that 9 years of family practice? What's one of the best things, one of the victories that you thought, yeah, this is why we're here?
That's a great question. So in my first year in practice, Miss Turner brought me a cherry pie. And that was like the highlight. I was like, I made it. I'm in family medicine.
There you go. And I got a cherry pie. Cha-ching.
It was great. She's so sweet. I know her still. But yeah, that was just a great climax. I love my patients. I love taking care of them, getting to know them, and just to feel like I was part of a community. And
Right.
that's great. That's a great thing. Yeah. But in addition to that, just over the years, developing those relationships and just really coming to know and appreciate them. We talk about their passions, their interests, and share just a lot of discussion, a lot of heart-to-heart conversations. And
Because at some
Really
level,
good.
like a family practice doc isn't just like, it's not just a one-off. Like a heart doctor can be one-off. Like you just go see him once. But we're a family practice doc, like you're more than likely just doing life with them, whether through kids or even into depending on the doctor, you're not always doing geriatric stuff, but you're helping them sometimes through transitioning through some of that stuff.
Right.
I mean, so you can be their doctor for their life pretty much,
sure.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that you made a transition. It's been a year or 2 years now?
No, just a few months.
Oh, months. Okay. Talk us through that transition. How you moved from, I assume, fairly successful practice, right, into a whole different realm of medical care. So tell us about that transition and how that shifted in you.
Sure. It was a very difficult decision. So I've been in practice for 9 years, and I loved taking care of my patients. I loved, like we talked about, the things, helping them. What I did not like was everything else. So, I would work from 7, I start seeing patients at 7, and I would finish seeing patients at 4 if I was on time. Usually
Right.
by the time I'm done with my last patient, it's about 4:20, 4:30, depending on how the day went. Maybe it's 5 o'clock. And then everything else has to get done. And so if you're a super efficient doctor, I guess you can get in and see your patients, talk to them, take care of their health needs, get all your notes finished, and then answer some phone calls, look at some lab results and some x-ray results or images or hospital notes, ER notes, all this stuff that's coming at you. And then you go see your next patient. But the reality is it's just really hard to do that and be that efficient and have a good relationship with your patients. And so that balance is very difficult to achieve and to maintain. And so I found that what ended up happening is I would spend more time in the room with my patients, and I would just not get my notes done, my charting done for my patient visit, and I wouldn't get to those hospital notes or ER notes or labs or images to be reviewed, which means that all that stuff just gets pushed back to the end of the day.
Right.
And so my passion for taking care of patients was being met, but all the requirements in order to maintain that were being pushed back to other times. And so I would work in the office from about 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. And then every day I went to work, I would generate about 2 or 3 hours of work undone. Every day I worked.
Right.
And so that was just a very difficult burden.
Yeah.
And it was true for 9 years. And so I would chart every night. I would chart in the mornings. I would chart every weekend.
Right.
And I had no free time, and it would affect the family. I would work very hard on being present with my wife and children after work, in the evenings. But as soon as the kids are in bed, I have to get charting, and it's always in the back of my mind. It's always a weight that's there, and again, just know not a lot of quality de-stressing time.
Right.
It was all charting. And so I realized I had to change something. I would adjust my schedule. I would try and make it so I could see less patients per day, allow more time for my patients, and, just carefully make these adjustments. But when you're living in 100% more than 100% all the time,
Yeah.
and I have no mental space for anything else, it was very difficult even to make small changes because I felt so overwhelmed all the time at work
Right.
that the idea of even trying to think about something different was almost impossible because I was just trying to keep afloat,
Right.
take care of everything. So it was difficult to make changes. But I did, and I could cut that 2 or 3 hours of extra work each day down to 1 or 2 by the time I was at the end of that 9-year period, but I couldn't really manage it all.
So you think that you made changes and you think that they were effective at
Yeah.
some level, but it's not, but I think so. And just so I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. Like you're hitting your passion spots for the things that you're excited about doing. But by the end of the day, when you've running out of energy because you've hit your passion spots, then you have to go back and follow up with the problem, with the stuff that's kind of been coming through the day that's
Yes.
behind you.
Right.
That's got to get done too.
Right,
That's
exactly.
not exactly passionate about.
Exactly. So for you, this would be like doing finances for 3 hours a day at the end of your work, right?
Right. That would be horrible.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure, like, to your point, like, the stress that would come from that on top of the fact that it has to get done, not just the stress of getting it done, but also the stress of knowing I had that headache coming. Did you feel that burden?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, is that real?
It was hard. It was hard.
I bet. And
Yeah.
so I can totally appreciate trying to make changes and then it helping, but just struggling through the process to make those changes because of the stress level and because of whether it's the stress of you just don't want to do it or the stress that you have to do it. And
Yes, exactly.
like it's compounding.
Right. Yeah, and it was tough because it was also conflicted by the fact that I loved spending time with my patients.
Right,
And so it was
yeah.
this dichotomy of something I really love and am passionate about.
Right.
But then mixed with something I just did not love.
Right.
Yeah.
And was a constant burden.
And then to add that into the mix of trying to balance out, the other thing you're passionate about is your family, and having to take away from that over something you're not passionate about.
Right.
That's got to be quite a struggle.
It was. It was hard.
I bet.
Yep. So I was, I would look occasionally at other options. There's kind of different models of primary care. And I interviewed with a couple different offices a few years ago, but just didn't really feel like it was the right fit. And then I was actually approached for this new job by the director of these nursing homes who knew me from the hospital. And he asked me if I would come in and, just a very different pace, very different quality of life balance. And so coming into work, much more reasonable hours, much shorter hours, and taking care of patients, going home, and I'm done when I leave the office, and I'm not taking any work home.
And my guess is you probably at some level still have to do the things that you don't enjoy.
Yeah, there's still some
there's
charting.
still charting and paperwork
Yeah.
that you probably have to do, but it probably looks completely different, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it happens within the block of time I'm at the nursing home, and
Yeah.
I leave it and
so you
walk out the door.
So your two passions are not conflicting.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's huge. I mean, my guess is that's a huge shift for a lot of people if they could figure out how to balance that out, balance out their passions and be able to, even though there's stuff you have to always, you're always going to have to take care of some things, right?
Right.
I mean, like
Yeah.
you're always going to
Right.
have to do something that's not in your passion, in your wheelhouse, but being able to balance that out so that you can do your passions is huge.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So before we go, I want to keep exploring this new role.
Sure.
But real quickly, thinking about 9 years of family practice, and and you're just talking, just seeing the window into the life of a doctor over these last few minutes makes me wonder: is there anything that you would want to tell patients? Like if you would just, if patients just understood this about their doctors, and Chris, you're married to a doctor, so. What is a mindset shift that you would just love to see the general public of patients, embrace about their doctor? And
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one that I would never tell patients myself.
right,
But I'm happy to say it in this setting.
exactly.
So, and I'm sincere about it. But so yeah, I guess. Yeah, so because this was an interesting lesson for me to learn as a new doctor.
Okay.
So when I came into practice, when you go to see your doctor as a patient, as an individual, you want your doctor to address all of your medical needs, all your concerns,
Right.
which is a reasonable expectation for an individual. But what you don't have in your head as a patient is that they can't address all of them. There's just, depending on the length of your list, right? So there's only so much time. And for me, it was important that when a patient brings me a concern, I want to know all the elements of that concern to be able to address it appropriately, which takes time and understanding and questions and, a lot of listening. And so if I'm going to address your concern appropriately, it's going to take a while. And so if you bring up 6 or 7 of them, that's just not possible.
Right.
And it happens a lot. And so I guess my advice would be when you go to see your doctor, have 1 or 2 things that are really important to you to address with the doctor. And if you have a list of 7 or 8 and you're not sure which one's most important, ask your doctor and say, this is my list of things. Can you tell me which ones are most important? If I don't have a clear answer to that one myself as the patient, hopefully I can come up with my top 2 myself. But if I don't, can you guide me? And then I had a few patients in that, I learned over time how to address that and would say, okay, well, let's look at your list. Let's decide the most important ones and let's tackle those first. And then we'll kind of move down the list over time. This is going to take a few visits. We're not going to do this in one visit. And just having the sensitivity and awareness of the doctor's time and commitment to other patients, and that they have a sincere desire to help you with your concern, but it's going to take some time to do that.
Right.
That would be my advice.
Okay.
That's great.
That is really good. I like that. So it's not, jump on WebMD and make your own diagnosis and then come tell me how to do my job. Yeah, that's
right.
I can bring you the printout stock if you need me.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. So in your new role then, tell us a little bit about, because you're leading some teams there at the nursing homes. You're in multiple homes. So tell us a little bit about leadership and how you're, bringing impact to those environments.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And it carries over from my previous work too. But yeah, so I lead a group. There's 4 full-time nurse practitioners and a part-time. And so helping them with their work, seeing patients. And I enjoy it. That aspect is still pretty new to me. But I enjoy the opportunity to work with them when they have questions and kind of talk through difficult patient scenarios, and just figure out that balance to help them take good care of patients and be satisfied with their work, and also their efforts to help me and.
Does that look like? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But is that like more? Would you consider that more of like a teaching role? Is that a teaching role or like a guidance role? Or
guidance. I mean, there's some teaching as well if they have questions. But more guidance really with their patient care and their decisions, and they ask me to be involved in more difficult patients. They'll see some that are less complicated, and we'll work together as a team in that way too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you encourage like the team atmosphere with those people since you guys kind of all have to report together?
Right.
Is that how that works?
Exactly.
Okay. So it's definitely, hey, we all need to work together kind of thing.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what's your population that you're serving? I mean, how many people do you usually serve?
Yeah, good question. So 2 of the nursing homes have between, it depends, but 120, 180 people.
Okay.
And then the other one is more like 100, but they're a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
Patients on ventilators and chronic like trachs in their neck, to help them breathe. So, there's large groups of people. So there's most of our work is helping patients who are in the rehab phase. So it's when you're really sick, you're in the hospital. Let's say you fell and broke your hip or something. You're not really ready enough to go home, but you're well enough to leave the hospital.
Okay.
So medically you're stable, but you just can't be home yet. And so they're working with physical therapy, occupational therapy, getting their strength up, speech therapy if they had a stroke or whatever, and then trying to get improved and get home. And so those patients we'll see very often. We'll see them every couple of days because they're just barely out of the hospital, and then help them transition medically to getting home and following up with their doctor and specialists. And then the other patients, the other kind of half of the patients we're managing are patients who are long-term residents of the nursing home. So they live there, and we are their primary care doctor. So we'll check on them every couple of months, on a regular visit. And then if there's any concerns or anything come up they're worried about, then we'll see them that day usually or the next day. So it's a balance of those two, and so we'll work as a team to figure out, okay, these are all the new ones coming in. We got to see them soon, within the first day or two when they come into the nursing home. We're going to check on them and make sure everything's good with their medicines, coming to the hospital and all this. And then I'll usually see them, I'll be there within the first 48 hours. And then the long-term residents, we kind of schedule out between us as a team. They'll see them sometimes, I'll see them sometimes. And
so is there anything different that is with your new environment versus your old environment as far as like leading? Because I know you led your team, that you had a team for you with your family practice. But is there any difference between these two teams?
Oh, yeah, it's very different. Yeah, so before in family medicine in my practice, we had a whole diversity of our team members. You have your front office, you have your office manager, you have your the MAs, who help room the patients, call the patients. And so you're working with a lot of different people with different skill sets. And I wasn't really the direct manager of them. Our office manager technically was their manager, but we're working together as teams all day.
Right.
And so you just great relationships working with them. But learning how to take care of patients well, and they were great, the people I worked with. But yeah, it's an interesting balance, where you're not their supervisor, but you are taking care of patients together. You are a team, and just collaborating with things. Again, most of the things I did great, but if there's ever something that's missed or a problem with a patient, we'll communicate that together.
When you guys encounter maybe a breakdown of communication, say, because you've got interrelated teams here that, like you said, you're not directly over, but there's influence over each other. When you encounter a breakdown in communication, how did you guys work through that? What are some of the things that strategies you use? Yeah,
that's a good question. So when I first started practice, I didn't know any of this, and I was not good at it. So I would often just try and, talk to the medical assistant about it directly and not involve the office manager, which, I don't know, I guess it wasn't fine. But because, I had a, relationship with them taking care of our patients, and I felt like I could talk to them about those concerns, and which is fine. But I learned after a few years that it was really much more effective if I incorporated our office manager. So number one, she is their direct supervisor, and she's responsible for their training and any corrections if there's something serious, But by including her, she was able to be a part of that communication process. And so that was very helpful because she could follow up with them, she could, touch base with them, make sure that they're doing well, keeping the behavior the way it needs to be done, and training new MAs that were coming into the office to make sure that we're, taking care of patients appropriately. So that was very helpful to include the manager in that process.
Okay. And being a self-proclaimed problem solver, right?
Sure.
And of course, a problem solver who's drawn to the human body, of which we understand really relatively very little, I think, in the end run, right?
Sure.
We're going to problem solve that. When it comes to solving problems, whether that's medical or that's, among the team, among leadership, or, just how we're going to serve our, our population in the homes or, whatnot. Boy, I lost my train of thought. We're going to have to edit this moment. Where was I going? I glanced. For some reason, my eyes went past the clock, and I didn't see anything, but it
problem solving
threw me off. Problem solving. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go toward like strategies, what, steps how you work through solving a problem.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So being a self-proclaimed problem solver, okay, you enjoy tackling problems, whether that's within the medical field or it's within leadership or working with your teams and helping bring the appropriate care to those who need it most, right?
Right. Yeah.
How do you tackle problem solving? What are some of the strategies? What are some of the steps or processes that you think through? What's your first step? How do you go about all that?
Yeah, good question. So for me, it is very important to understand the problem thoroughly. And so while we talked earlier before the recording about I am a creative first is my first voice. So I definitely am very forward thinking. And sometimes definitely my wife and I were talking this morning about how I lack the effort to put all the pieces into play before I start my project.
Sometimes it's just better to start the project.
That's right.
Yeah.
Get the pieces along the way.
Right.
But when it comes to problems generally, especially in medicine, in my work, I am very careful to ask a lot of questions and understand the situation carefully. So when it came to patient care, I would just make sure I listened a lot, understood a lot. What was the problem, and then figure out from there how to address it. And so I think asking the right questions was key to know what is the problem itself, what is the basis for the problem. If a patient's having trouble with high blood pressure, are they taking their medicine? Are they missing their medicine? Is it too expensive? Is there a side effect of the medicine? There's all sorts of facets, right? And so in order to manage that, yes, I could prescribe you a second blood pressure medicine, but I would much rather figure out what's the problem, with the current medicine, or is there something that can be done to address it? Or if you're eating too much salt and not exercising, let's address that, not add another medicine at all. And so so those are, I think that to me is important, because I want to take good care of the patient, and to me that means understanding where the patient is.
Okay,
that's good.
That is cool. That is cool. I'm struggling. Sorry.
No, you're
We're going
good.
to do some heavy editing on this one, apparently.
Well, so then now you've thrown me off. Thanks, Jason. I wasn't.
We normally flow a lot better.
We do.
You're good. You're fine. You're fine.
Sorry, Brendon.
So one thing.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I was making this change, it was really difficult for me at first to decide. So again, I guess maybe it is kind of my creative brain, but when I was faced with this idea, leaving family medicine, these patients I took care of for 9 years, their kids, several of them I delivered as like their OB doctor when I was in residency training, and then I took care of the parents, took care of grandparents, and it was really difficult for me to think about walking away from these people that I come to love and care for. And the thought that kept coming into my mind is, okay, so if I leave this, go work in a nursing home, is this the kind of person I want to be? In my head, I was going to be a family doctor that grows older with my patients, and I'm there, and for years, and to be that kind of iconic family doctor, that I've always appreciated in my life. And how much does that matter to me? Mm-hmm. And that was a really difficult decision. And and what do I want to be? Do I want to be a nursing home director for years? Do I want to, pursue more healthcare education? Work at like a medical school, or work more at the residency and teach residents. And so it just was a lot of soul searching to decide, what do I really want? What is my goal here? And the thought that came to me, which is and this was again, a moment of pondering and prayer, and just felt guided that, it doesn't really matter so much for me. And for some people, maybe it does matter. But for me, it doesn't matter so much what my job is. What matters is how I do my job. And it's much more important for me personally to be known for how I do my job than what my job is. Mm-hmm. And that was a very helpful thought process to come to. And I feel that is important.
Yeah.
So, and truly, like, in your entire process of becoming who you are now, right? You've kind of hit all your passions with teaching and the community and serving. And like, so truly at the end of the day, like even with those different options that you had in your head, you were going to probably be able to hit those passions without a problem. Mm-hmm. But it was trying to figure out how to best do that for you and making sure that you could do it successfully. Right. So you mentioned it. Was there a shift? I mean, it sounds like there was somewhat of a struggle to leave what you thought was going to happen with what you wanted to do long term.
Yes.
So that thought process of, hey, I'm going to grow old with my patients and I'm going to be with them for their entire lives. Right. And then shifting to the job you are now. Tell us, because I mean, at some level, there's many people who are driven in the world who have a plan and expectation, and then you hit this speed bump. How do you overcome that? Like, how do you balance that out for Brendon, who transitioned, but also needed to make sure he hit the passions that he's currently passionate about, which is his family and his teaching?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, it's a good question. So yeah, and that's really where this thought process, where I really had to think a lot through all that. And I decided, yeah, I do want to take care of patients.
Yep.
I decided I don't care so much the avenue in which I am taking care of patients. So one of my patients, when I announced that I was leaving, he said, so is this a passion of yours? Have you always wanted to go like work in a nursing home and help with rehab patients? Oh, no. This is not a passion of mine. It's just going to be a much better quality of life change. And so for me, the passion is my wife and my family. Mm-hmm. And I also just have other hobbies and interests that I would like to engage in that I was unable to engage in previously.
Right.
And so, but family certainly is the top priority. And so for me, the passion, yes, I'm able to continue my passion of caring for patients. It changes the venue in which I do that, but it allows me to keep the core passion value, which is my time with my wife, time with my kids.
Right. Mm-hmm. So just a couple of months on this side of that transition, what have been the ripple effects? We talked about what's led up to that transition.
Right.
How have you felt the ripple effects of this decision of going from, you're saying you're adding 2 to 3 hours a day of, for every day you worked, you're adding another couple hours of work. And so the overwhelm just kept building and building and building. And so you're going from having to operate at 130% capacity, say, down to, wow, I'm in my limits now.
Right, exactly. It's been amazing. Yeah, I've discovered this thing people call free time. It's unusual, but I like it.
What? You have free time?
I know. So some days, I finish pretty early. I'll finish at like 2 o'clock, or a couple of days. In my training, to be fair, my load was lighter because I wasn't managing all 3 facilities. But I'd be done at noon, and I'd come home, and my wife was like, "What are you doing here?"
You're in my free time now.
I know, right.
Go back to work.
Right. Yeah. And I'm often now, I'm actually home when the kids get off the bus, and it's great. It's really nice. It's nice to be present more, which I was not able to be. So
you've definitely felt the ripple effect into your family life and your first passion.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on this too real quick, just for those that might potentially be struggling with a shift in life that you kind of sound like you went through, like with a lot of prayer and guidance. At some level, it sounds like you kind of said, okay, well, this is my first passion. This is what I'm called to first. This is what I'm called to second. And staying true to yourself, but also recognizing that they have a little different level of importance in your own life for you.
Exactly.
Is that accurate?
I agree. Exactly. Yep. And certainly work was the dominant demand in my life. And so changing, to meet what really is value number one.
For you.
Yeah. And that's been great. Thanks.
I bet that's been, you even said 9 years of trying to make changes at different levels. Like this was a big change. I bet this took a lot of time and mental capacity to wrap your head around to try to make a change like this. Right. Because this was a different shift.
It was. It's a very, very big shift. And to be honest, there was a time in that initial phase where I started to where I went from that 130% down to, I don't know, whatever, 70%, where I felt kind of guilty that I didn't have that stress load. Mm. And there's times in life I think we all feel that, right? Where like things are easier, and we're like, wow, what do I do now?
Right.
And my wife and I are reading this book. Actually, we've been slowly reading it over time. Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I don't know, this one.
Yes, I'm in the middle of that.
Book.
Yeah,
it's such a good book.
It is.
And he talks about this. It's almost, in a way, almost like an addiction to be stressed and busy.
Yeah.
In our current society.
Completely agree.
And that following the way of Christ is, his perspective as a pastor is, to take on the apprenticeship of a follower of Christ and to take on his mannerisms and character. And he was not a hurried person. He didn't come off as someone who was too busy for you.
Right.
Anyway, but it's been helpful perspective to think about how can my life be more purposeful in the time that I have available to dedicate to all of these things, and how do I put the most important things first?
That's awesome.
That's good.
That's huge.
Yeah. I think we just wrapped that up.
Right.
I think that was solid. Yeah.
Well, I know that we've touched on a lot today, and I once again thank you for coming and hanging out with us today.
Sure.
It's just, I know that it's probably we went over some stuff in 40 minutes, but I'm sure that this transition of time and things that you've gone through over the last year have probably been somewhat grueling at moments, but also, you know, I'm glad to see that on the backside of it, that you're happy and that, you know, what might feel like 70% for you might be 100% as well for the people around you, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing those real life situations. Then hopefully that can encourage somebody else out there that is out, you know, might potentially be listening to something and trying to make hard decisions, because they come.
Those career changes are hard.
They are.
Yeah.
They're hard, and especially when you, at some level, think you're going to be doing something for the rest of your life, and it's like you get a curveball in there.
That's right.
It's not easy.
And
That's right.
like we talked about, you know, when you're in the middle of it, of that stress level, it's just hard to think about doing anything differently.
Yes.
And so I think, looking for mentors, looking for people that can help steer you. What are your other options? You know, what's out there as an
Because it's not
alternative.
always A or B. It might be C, D, or E, and F. You know, you never know.
Yeah.
And opening yourself up to that is a process too.
Yeah. Right.
So, thank you again for spending some time with us.
Absolutely.
And thanks for sharing.
Thank you so much for all you do in our community.
Yes,
and
thank you for,
you know, I mean, medical is one of those huge moments where people are just in crisis, and you know, thank you for stepping in the gap and caring for people well.
Yeah, and thanks
Good
for
stuff.
sharing those passions with us today.
Yeah,
Sure. You bet.
All right, we'll catch you guys back here in just a moment.
Well, Jason, I know Brendon on a personal level too, and I will tell you.
Thanks for introducing us.
He is a phenomenal guy. And it's funny that we were able to sit down at this point. You know, it's like where he has been such a strong leader for so long in all of his environments, I'm sure, because you got to know him. Like he's just a great guy and a great servant. And but it was great to talk with him, because I am sure beyond a shadow of a doubt that what I didn't think about was trying to make a transition like that. I'm sure was very difficult.
Absolutely.
And was probably, in this time of we're coming out of the Great Resignation time frame, and where people are rethinking life and what they want out of it, and trying to figure out their passions and trying to figure out what they want to do, and trying to align their current skill sets with what they could potentially do with them, because the current job is not meeting the satisfactory goals of what they want. You know, it's just, and for a guy like Brendon, who decided that he wanted to be a doctor for his patients for the rest of his life, and then to get thrown that curveball, I can't imagine. I was trying to imagine, I guess, at some level, what that struggle was like, and I'm sure it was not easy.
Absolutely. And after we stopped the interview, we talked a little bit about, you know, peeking into our own lives of understanding the transferable skills that we have.
Right.
And you know, and so I think that was a huge part of his transition, was listening to other people and seeing, I do have other things to offer.
Right. That
still meets. I want to do. You know, here's my passion,
right?
But my skills help me, you know, and so, I'd encourage you, you know, if you're listening and thinking about transition, to, talk to people who are familiar with your industry, what you do, but are probably outside of it,
right?
Because that would give a little bit of objectivity of going, here's the transferable skills that I see in you,
right?
Here's what I see you being good at,
right?
You know?
And what I also love is that even it didn't matter what scenario he ended up with, he knew his passions, of taking care of people.
Absolutely.
He is a great physician.
Yeah.
And he does an excellent job of taking care of his patients. So it didn't matter what setting he was going to be in, he's always going to do an excellent job of taking care of his people. Yeah. If you're one of his people, then Dr. Sweeney is going to take care of you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I appreciate that he was able to stay true to that as in the process of trying to figure out what that transition was.
Right. Yeah, and I'm gonna keep mulling over the, you know, some of the things he was talking about of just feeling the overwhelm in the family practice, that you know, he'd work a day and add 2 or 3 hours to the back burner that had to get done at some point. You know,
which I think that, you know, I think that many people go through their day and they don't think about the things that, or they do. Yeah. Maybe they do. I mean, like he knew beyond a shadow of a doubt he had to get that stuff done too. So and it's like, and it's got to be somewhat of a grueling process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And he's talking about, just making these incremental changes that in the end don't solve the problem.
Right.
I can maybe make a change that's going to lower my overwhelm a few percentage points.
Right.
But I'm still overwhelmed.
Right.
And so, as a fellow creative, I'm so glad he jumped on before the podcast and took the 5 voices. That was kind of fun.
Right.
Kind of know, where he's coming from and things like that. But, him and I are both creative first voice. And that's kind of part of our personalities that we like digging in deep to the point of overwhelm and burnout. And then we get in that state and we're like, what do we do? How do we get out? And so, the courage that it took to say, I need to make a large scale change, and that was huge. That was cool. It's good stuff.
Yeah. So thanks again.
Yeah. You guys, bake some cherry pies for your doctors.
For your physicians. Yeah.
Or, find out what unhealthy food your doctors like
right.
to eat. Take that to them. But yeah.
Because they're trying to serve their people as well. Like
absolutely.
At a whole new level,
absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Well, you guys, thanks for tuning in today. Give us a like, subscribe, send us a comment. Shoot us an email. If you've got a question or somebody in the community that you think would be a great interview that we need to meet, hear their story, let us know. We'd love to hear about that. And
we got more new stuff coming up.
Yeah.
But let us know what you're thinking about the current information and what we're putting out. And
That's right.
Send us a comment.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in, and you guys keep serving.